Welcome, students, to Grimaldus' class of College Reading 101. Today, we shall be learning strategies to make you a better reader. Pre-reading, annotating, identifying bias. Today, I shall teach you how to apply these methods to aid you in becoming the best college reader this realm has ever known. Lesson number 1. Pre-reading. This is the tactic of scanning your given text for insight into what the article may be about. Now, typically, there are 3 elements to pre-reading: the title, hypergraphical aids, and the concluding paragraph. The main goal of using these elements is to identify what the text is about and how the author intends to approach the topic. It's very important to remember this goal. Do not forget. Element number 1. This one is pretty self-explanatory. As you can see here, you look at the title, and in this example, we can probably assume that this article will focus on the strategies that pro-abortion advocates are using. Element number 2. This can include photos, quotes, definitions, anything that is separate from the main body of the text. In this specific case, in this article, we really only have one to take note of. As you can see, it seems to be mainly showing us an example of a pro-abortion advocate. Element number 3. The concluding paragraph. From reading this, we can get an understanding of the author's true standing on the topic at hand. From this, we can kind of tell that the author is not a fan of abortion advocates. Use these tools at your discretion and gain yourself greater insight into the text that you will read. And always remember, when pre-reading, what you must always be on the lookout for:
what the text is about, and what's the author's approach.
Correct! Lesson number 2. Annotating. Essentially, this is note-taking while you read. This can be just making comments, underlining words you don't know, or stating what a part of a text makes you feel. Think of it as having a conversation with the author. Now, don't be afraid to simply write or note whatever comes to mind as you read. Interacting with the text in this manner will make it all the more memorable for you. Remember, when you annotate, it is your personal world to do as you like. Now, here are some examples based on the article that we read before. As you can see in the article's first page, I looked at the title, underlined what I could think it's about. Then when it came to the body of the actual article, I underlined what possibly was main ideas, perhaps some claims. I used different colors, brackets, anything to differentiate my thoughts. On the second page, again, different colors to separate my thoughts into what I was doing. And again, as you can see at the bottom there, Homie really hates abortion advocates. Was it necessary? No, but it's a thought that I had as I read the paragraph. Annotating is your own world. It lets you interact with the text in a way you don't normally do. And with this annotation method, you learn even greater because things stick more when you feel you have interacted with it. Remember this and try it on your own time. Finally, Lesson 3. Identifying bias. What is bias? It is prejudice in favor or against someone or something, usually in an unfair manner. How do we identify bias? I like to use the acronym BALL. B or bend. You see a claim or statement that favors one side at the expense of another? Then you have yourself a bend bias or leaning. bias. A. Aim. What is the writer's intention of this statement? Does it align with what is true? This may be harder for some to discern, but with a little bit of research and know-how, you can make sure and identify if the writer is using aim bias. The first L. Loaded words. Words or phrases used to provoke an emotional reaction from its reader. Referring back to the article, in the final paragraph, you can see a few examples of loaded word bias. Here, where the author states killing children in the womb is acceptable, they're trying to provoke an emotional reaction. Otherwise, the author would have just simply said abortion. With this statement, one can presume that the author is very much against abortion, from the bias used in this statement. Any time an emotional word or phrase is used, in lieu of more neutral common words, that gives you a hint that the author is biased in some form. The final L. Leave out. Is the author intentionally leaving out information at the expense of the opposing side or viewpoint? One of the more common forms of bias that a lot of main media use. They leave out important information to the reader in order to support their own claims. Remember to always keep a healthy amount of skepticism when reading academic works, and should you have the means, compare it to other works on the same topic. And that, class, concludes our lesson for today. Now, get out of my classroom. I have work that needs to be done.